again, folks, and welcome to another video. Now, it may seem very obvious, but this video I'm going to be talking about PlayStation VR and what it's like collecting for PlayStation VR in 2021. So let's have a little history lesson on the PlayStation VR. So it was released in 2016 with a price tag of £350 here in the UK. I, for one, waited for that price drop 2 years later when I got it for about £230 on Black Friday, and over the years they have shifted over 5 million of these headsets. But it does seem to me, and to quite a lot of people, the PlayStation VR wasn't quite the commercial success I think Sony was expecting, which is a real shame, as while it may have its limitations, it is a really good piece of kit. And I feel in years to come, it is going to be something that people are going to struggle to collect for, and this is why. I think a lot of websites at the moment are clearing out their physical copies of games for the PlayStation VR, as it kind of comes to the end of its lifespan, and we're not really sure how it's going to go on PlayStation 5. A lot of these games are on clearance, they are very cheap, and I think now is the time to buy them. That's because while you can go on PlayStation Network and buy cheap PlayStation VR games, as soon as those licenses run out, they are removed from the system or you delete them from your console, they are gone forever. That is why I believe physical discs for the PlayStation VR are more important now than ever. So get them now. I tell you, you are going to regret it if you don't in a few years. So in this episode, I'm going to be going through my entire physical collection for the PlayStation VR in 2021. Let's jump in. First things first, there is a few things you'll need to play PlayStation VR, obviously. First of which being a headset which will connect with all the gubbins up to your television. A lot of games as well will require the Move controllers. I know when these first came out they were incredibly hard to get hold of, and I don't really know what the value of them's doing at the moment, but definitely if you see them for a good price, pick them up, as there are certain games you cannot play without these. Also on the market we do have the aim controller, which I have not added into my collection yet, but there's a couple of games you really need that for, because trust me about it, they are pretty much unplayable. Now we have our hardware sorted, onto the games. The first game I want to talk about is probably the game that most people would play straight away, and that is PlayStation Worlds. Pretty much every copy of the headset came with this, and it really just showed you how amazing PlayStation VR was going to be. This was the way to see how this thing worked, the experiences you could get, and it was more kind of a tech demo, but it was a very good one nonetheless. The first big game I think that comes to mind when you talk about games you need to have for your PlayStation VR is Astrobot. So you may notice with quite a few of these games we'll be talking about today, these are sealed. That's because with Astrobot and with PlayStation Worlds, I do have digital copies of these games, but as a game collector and knowing they might be delisted one day, I like to keep physical copies I can literally never let hold of. This next game is the first in a little section of first-person shooters, games that work really well on the PlayStation VR, and I think this is one of the best ones on here, Arizona Sunshine. It has so many ways you can play. You can use the Move controllers, the aim controller, or even the classic PlayStation 4 controller. It's really atmospheric, it really drags you in, and you look super cool playing this when you get a hang of those controls. Next game I want to talk about is The Walking Dead Onslaught. That was actually the game that was the inspiration for this list. That is because I bought this on Black Friday like I bought my PlayStation VR on Black Friday. This is a game I'm yet to play, but it's been on my list of games I've been asking for quite a while. So I'm really looking forward to jumping to this one real soon. One of the biggest companies to really support PlayStation VR and put out some really cool games with it is Bethesda. The first of which is Wolfenstein Cyberpilot. If you know me, you know I love me some Wolfenstein. Any excuse to get into a giant mech and kill some Nazis is very good in my book. Secondly, we have possibly the only PlayStation VR game that's actually given me motion sickness, and that is Doom VFR. And there is a reason it's called VFR. If you know what that means, that is because this game is intense. You seriously do not get an idea of how big some of these demons are until you're face to face with them literally in VR. The last game is of course the classic, that is Doom 3. Again, this is one I have not got around to playing yet, but this was an atmospheric, scary game back on the original Xbox. Imagine what this is going to be like in VR. It's definitely going to be up there one of the scariest VR games you can play. The next set of games on our list are all horror games. A category of games that works very, perhaps too well on the PlayStation VR. That is because people are suckers for jump scares, and what better way to make people jump scared than have something appear directly in front of their face. One game that does this all too well is The Persistence. This kind of feels to me like kind of a Dead Space with like in VR essentially. Kind of less scary aliens, more kind of jump scares. This is also a game that you can play in many different ways, but it's probably best on the PlayStation VR. When we talk about horror games on the PlayStation, we have to always think about Until Dawn. Also, there is a offshoot game which is kind of a roller coaster shooting simulator on the PlayStation VR with Rush of Blood. But there is a third game in the series, and this one is a prequel. That is The Persistence. So this is a game that's set in, I think it's about the 1960s, in the mental asylum you visit in Until Dawn. This one is one which kind of gives you a bit more depth to that story, and of course it is super scary, super atmospheric, and definitely one for you horror fans out there. Next up is a game which is one of many blind buys, if you excuse the pun, on this list. That is because of how PlayStation VR games are disappearing at the moment. If I see a cheap game I like the look of or even remotely find interesting, I will pick it up. So Blind looks like a game where you work around the map using sound. It looks really interesting, it sounds kind of scary, kind of different. Definitely one to pick up if you see it cheap, just like I did. Unfortunately, with all consoles, there are always going to be games that kind of have online services which are going to disappear. So the next two are games that do have some single player, but they were kind of more focused on the multiplayer. So the first of which is Super Stardust VR. This is a super cool kind of space combat game. I presume probably at the time of recording this, the servers may still be up, but this is probably one to be shut down soon, if not already. But one you can still enjoy in single player. But with these two games, they're definitely ones you can get a lot more of when you have multiplayer. But if they're a cheap pickup, definitely worth grabbing.
Prepare to be dazzled!
Starblood Arena starts now!
Next up, we have kind of another arena shooting game with Starblood Arena. This was actually a game that once again was super cheap. I think it came out right at the start of the PlayStation VR. Definitely a very good one to see if you see it in CX. It's only a couple of quid, so it's worth adding into the collection. Next two games are what I like to call full immersion VR games. These are games where you have to move around, you have to shake your body, and you need to shake what your mother gave you. The first one is Superhot VR. This was one of the reasons I bought PlayStation VR to begin with. This game looked so sick. Just seeing people play this well is an absolutely beautiful thing. Sadly, I am not quite as good as some of those players, but if you do not know the idea, the premise of this game, the world only moves when you move. So if you stand still, you will not be attacked. But as soon as you move, enemies run towards you. It's kind of like, on a base level, it's kind of a VR simulator game. It does get a little bit deeper, but it's one of those games you can play on other consoles, but I highly recommend, if you can, play the VR version.
Superhot.
This next game is probably going to be one of the harder titles to pick up, especially physically, on this list. That's because Space Channel 5 VR was released through Limited Run. So if you didn't realise, Limited Run have done quite a few PlayStation 4 VR games. These especially are the games which I think are going to get super expensive and super hard to pick up. But this is available digitally if you want to play it, but if like me physically, this one might be one you have to brace your wallet for.
Hey you! Are you tired of the same old boring reality day in and day out? Well, now you can strap PlayStation VR to your face and experience the lives of your favorite Rick and Morty characters!
These next two games are what I kind of call more VR experiences. They haven't got quite as much gameplay, they're kind of leaning towards the kind of walking simulators, but they're definitely still ones to check out, even though they've probably not got quite as much depth as like a longer game. First of which is Rick and Morty Virtual Reality. If you are a fan of the Rick and Morty level of humour or enjoy the show, you will definitely enjoy this one. It's weird. It's a game within a game. It's definitely a Rickception. Definitely want to check out if you enjoy Rick and Morty. If not, maybe not for you. This game right here is actually one of my favourite games on PlayStation VR, and that is Ark Park. So if you've played the Ark games before, you can it's like Minecraft with dinosaurs. Let's just take it down to its simple levels. Basically, you can grind for hours and hours and hours and eventually have something really cool. With this one, you can just visit, essentially, let's just not relabel it. You can essentially visit Jurassic Park, walk around, look at dinosaurs, have a fantastic time. It's not the deepest, it is more of an interactive kind of roller coaster. But if you're a big fan of dinosaurs, like myself, you need to check this one out. As I said earlier in the video, I think now is a really good time to be collecting PlayStation VR games. That is because a lot of websites are clearing out their stock and you can get some real bargains now before they disappear forever. So this next section is games that I have just picked up cheap to add into the collection. Very little knowledge of them, just saw them, they look cool, I add them. The first of which is The Wizards. Again, I've not really looked into these games very much, so please let me know in the comments below if there are some hidden gem games I have that I've not checked out. But yeah, definitely looking forward to jumping on this one. Another game that I picked up very cheap is Ghost Giant. This game, I think I always get confused with Concrete Genie, just because they seem to come out at the very same time. They looked very similar, but this one again was another one. It's super cheap to pick up at the moment. Trust me, grab these games now, you're going to regret it down the line. The final game of this kind of cheap grab bag is Golem, I don't know, however you want to pronounce it. Again, don't really know a lot about this game, picked it up on kind of clearance, it was very cheap, so let me know if this is one I need to add to my PSVR list. One thing that surprises me is my actual lack of driving games on the PlayStation VR. I don't think there's many been released, but this is definitely one of the best, and that is Wipeout for the PlayStation VR. And this game is fast. If you want immersion, you want the need for speed, feel this one. It is jaw-dropping how quick this is in VR. I know you can play it in a standard motion on PlayStation 4, but this way is a definitive way to play this game. It really gives you that idea of futuristic speed. We're coming to the last games on the list, and these are kind of games that can be played on PlayStation VR or can be played on other consoles. The first of which is Zone of the Enders: The Second Runner, which is a game I never actually played, which was released back on the PlayStation 2 and on the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 in an HD remaster. I have no idea why they only did the second game. I don't even really know why they brought it to PlayStation VR, but it's really cool. But at the end of the day, Konami just do some weird stuff, and it's definitely a game that is really suited to VR, so really looking forward to jumping in this one, get me some mech action. Here we are then in 2021. You can play Skyrim on your Game Boy, on your fridge, on your calculator, pretty much anywhere you care to imagine you can play Skyrim. But hand on heart, I think the best way to play this is on the PlayStation VR. It sounds corny, but there is no more way to find yourself immersed in that game than in VR. This is one of the most overwhelming VR games I've ever played. I have played Skyrim multiple times through, but I've never seen the world the way I've seen it in VR. It will absolutely blow your mind. Another game that we have all played a million times before on every console ever created is of course Minecraft. But again, in my humble opinion, this is the best way to play it. You will see it in a new way. You have never imagined the game before with the PlayStation 4 VR support. Trust me, it will blow you away and you'll never want to play it any other way again. This is going back a long way, but the first time I ever played PlayStation VR, I played the kind of interactive demo that was on Star Wars Battlefront, and it was like, this is for me, this is what I'm talking about. Star Wars in VR, flying an X-Wing, taking on TIE fighters, going off against Star Destroyers, that was the best. That's why I had high hopes for Star Wars Squadrons. But this, for me, is one of the biggest disappointments of recent years. I didn't like the controls, I didn't like the storyline, I didn't like the way it played, I hated it. I don't really know how they ruined a Star Wars game so much. I just hope we get a decent Star Wars game soon, but this one, it hurt. As you can tell in my voice, I really wanted to love this one, but who knows, try it, you might like it. Okay, so a lot of games are a lot of fun on PlayStation VR. They're very atmospheric, they really drag you in, but nothing will ever prepare you for Resident Evil 7 on PlayStation VR. if you ever watch reaction videos, if you ever seen friends playing it, I think one of my favourite gaming memories of all time was actually watching my brother play this in our local gaming cafe. This game is scary normally. In VR, it is a whole different monster. I like to think I'm quite hard, I'm quite tough. I'm not really one to jump and scream. This scares me. I tell you what, if I had a lot of comments on this video, I would stream a live playthrough of this game. But it is going to take a lot of persuasion. So let me know in the comments below if you want me to stream this in 2022 and probably die of a heart attack so doing. We've come to the final game of the video, and it is one that does fill me with hope. So this game was only released about the middle of this year, and it shows that there's still people developing for the PlayStation VR, and hopefully it will not die, and that is Star Wars: A Vader Story. This is the Star Wars I'm talking about. I'm talking about canon, decent Star Wars stories. I'm talking lightsaber battles. I'm talking using the Force. This is the kind of game that VR is made for. This is why I hope when they make PlayStation VR for PlayStation 5, be it this headset or a different one, they take games like this and just really, really work on them. There is the temptation for there to be tons of shovelware on VR, and I just really hope we get more quality games like this one going forward. There we have it then, folks. That is our video, and that is my entire PlayStation VR collection in 2021. So I am really keeping an eye on those sales in a minute, just trying to pick up as many of these games physically while I can. As trust me, these are going to be hard to get in years to come, so grab them now or you will regret it. So we've come to the end of the video, and I'd like you to leave a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video. If for nothing else, I've kept this headset on all the way through. There's some quite good outtakes which I might stick on the end just to show you how annoying this is to film in. I hope you enjoyed the video. Remember, I put new videos out every single Saturday, so please subscribe. It really helps the channel. Thanks for watching, and as always, keep playing the game. See y'all soon.